Why are we so comfortable with damaged women until they stop being sympathetic, until they are loud about it, until they are ugly about it, until they are not standing in the doorway with tears in their eyes and a perfectly organized timeline of every bad thing that happened to them, until they are not asking nicely, until they are not making it easy for us to forgive the person who hurt them. We love a woman in pain. We just like her pain to be curated. We like it when she is graceful under pressure. We like it when she is tragic, but still beautiful. We like it when she has been through hell, but somehow came out smelling like lavender and giving TED Talks about resilience. We like her bruises when they make us feel tender. We like her trauma when it makes us feel compassionate. But if she is angry, if she is difficult, if she is cold or suspicious or selfish or cruel in return, then suddenly everyone needs to know what happened to her. Not what happened to her, what happened inside her. As if the damage is only real if we can prove she was a little broken before somebody broke her open. And that is what I keep thinking about when I think about Ivy Pochoda's women. I don't think her books are interested in handing us women we can easily save. I don't think they are interested in making anybody comfortable. They are interested in women who have been watched, consumed, used, dismissed, feared, abandoned, blamed. Women who have been told, directly or indirectly, that their anger is a stain, that their grief is embarrassing, that their survival should look prettier than it does. And I think that is why these books that I've been reading get under my skin. Because there is this pressure, especially for women who have survived something, to perform healing in a way that reassures everyone else. You have to be healed, but not too healed. Don't make people uncomfortable by becoming too powerful. You have to talk about what happened, but don't talk about it in a way that makes anyone feel guilty. You can be angry, but only in the past tense. You can tell the truth, but only if it is polished and digestible and wrapped up with a little bow at the end. And God forbid you don't have a bow. God forbid you are still standing in the middle of it. God forbid you are still furious. In Ivy's These Women, there is this ache that runs through the story. Not just grief, it's not just violence either, but the ache of women who are treated like background noise. Women who are seen only in pieces, a body, a rumor, a warning, a mistake, a name people say softly and then move past. And I think there is something so devastating about that. How easily certain women become stories people tell about danger instead of people who had whole lives, thoughts, desires, routines, memories, favorite songs, private jokes, the 1,000 tiny details that make a person a person. We are so conditioned to look away from women once they become inconvenient, once they become too poor, too sexual, too angry, too addicted, too loud, too traumatized, too much. We tell ourselves we care about women, but sometimes what we mean is that we care about women who make us feel good about caring. And there are women who do not get that kind of care. There are women who disappear in plain sight. That is the thing about violence. It doesn't always begin with a hand around someone's throat. Sometimes it begins with a room full of people who have already decided that a woman's life is not worth the inconvenience of paying attention. And I think that is why these women stayed with me. Because it is not just asking who did this. It is asking who looked away, who benefited from not seeing, who decided that some women were already gone before they were ever gone. Then you get to Ivy's Sing Her Down, and everything gets darker, meaner, more unstable. There is this thing we do with women in stories. We want one to be good and one to be bad, right? One to be the victim and one to be the villain. We want a clean line down the middle. We want the person who has been harmed to be pure. We want the person who causes harm to be a monster. And we can recognize them from a mile away. But life doesn't work like that. People who have been hurt can hurt people. You know the saying, hurt people hurt people. People who have survived can be dangerous. People who are dangerous can also be wounded. And none of that erases what happened. None of that makes abuse okay. None of that means everyone is equally responsible for every kind of harm. But it does mean that human beings are more complicated than the roles we assign them. Sometimes we confuse being harmed with powerless. And sometimes we confuse being angry with being evil. There are people who will meet a woman at the point where she finally breaks and say, "See, I knew she was crazy." Not because she is, not because they know her, but because it is way easier than asking what had to happen to get her there. What did she swallow before she screamed? What did she survive before she became impossible to deal with? What did she lose before she stopped trying to be the better person? And I'm not saying anger makes someone righteous. I'm not saying pain gives us permission to destroy everybody around us. But I am saying that anger tells the truth before politeness can get to it. Anger says, something happened here. Anger says, I was not okay with that. Anger says, you do not get to take from me and then demand that I remain soft enough for you to recognize. And there is a difference between being consumed by anger and allowing yourself to finally hear it. Because a lot of us, especially women, were taught to fear our anger before we were taught to even understand it. We were taught that a raised voice was dangerous, that saying no was rude, that being hurt was more acceptable than hurting someone's feelings, that keeping the peace mattered more than having peace. We were taught to call ourselves dramatic when our bodies were trying to warn us. We were taught to call ourselves crazy when someone kept moving the floor underneath our feet. We were taught that being liked was safer than being believed. And now I'll turn to Ivy Pochoda's Ecstasy. The title alone. Because ecstasy is not just joy. It is not just pleasure. It is that feeling of being carried beyond yourself. I believe that's actually how it is in Greek, to be honest, the word ecstasy. Outside of the version of you that has been controlled, contained, explained away, it can be sacred. It can be terrifying. It can be liberation. It can also be destruction. That is the part I find so compelling in ecstasy, to be honest. The idea that women's rage is not always neat, not always safe, not always empowering in the Instagram caption kind of way, you know? Sometimes rage is a door. Sometimes it is a fire. Sometimes it burns the house down. And sometimes that house was a prison. And maybe the question is not whether anger is good or bad. Maybe the question is, who taught us to be afraid of it? Who taught us women to be afraid of it? Who benefits when women never get angry? Who feels most comfortable when women keep their instincts quiet, keep their pain hidden, keep their needs small enough to fit in the palm of someone else's hand? There is a version of femininity that is rewarded because it is manageable, soft-spoken, self-sacrificing, forgiving before anyone has even apologized. The kind of woman who will bleed quietly so nobody has to clean up after her. And I think some women spend years trying to become that woman because they think she will be safe. But safety is not the same as silence. Being good is not the same as being available for harm. Being kind is not the same as accepting cruelty. And healing is not always becoming softer. Sometimes healing is becoming honest. Sometimes healing is admitting that you are not over it. Sometimes healing is realizing the version of you that kept everyone comfortable was not actually you. It was a survival strategy. It was camouflage. It was a way of making it through a room, a relationship, a family, a workplace, a whole goddamn life without being punished for taking up space. And then one day, maybe you do not want to camouflage anymore. Maybe you want to be seen. Not as a victim, not as a villain, not as somebody's cautionary tale or somebody's inspiration porn or somebody's perfect example of what recovery should look like. Just as a person, a whole person, a person who was hurt and still here, a person who has rage and tenderness living in the same body, a person who can be compassionate and exhausted, loving and guarded, healing and still angry, soft and sharp, afraid and dangerous, in the very specific sense that she is no longer willing to abandon herself. That is what I keep coming back to with Ivy Pochoda's work. Not that women are monsters, not that victims are secretly villains, not that rage saves us, and definitely not that LA is horrible or great. But it's that women have always been more complicated than the stories people are comfortable telling about them. And maybe the most frightening thing about a woman who finally understands what happened to her is not that she will become violent. Maybe it is that she will stop asking permission to call it what it is, what it was. Maybe she will stop bargaining with people who benefit from her confusion. Maybe she will stop trying to make her pain sound reasonable. Maybe she will look at the wreckage, look at herself, and say, I was there. I was there. I know what happened, and I do not need you to make it make sense for me anymore. That kind of knowing changes a person, you see. That kind of knowing can be lonely, but it can also be the beginning of something. Not a clean ending, not a perfect redemption arc, not a neat little lesson wrapped in a bow. Just the beginning of a woman coming back to herself.